Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a speed paint on The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. It's one of my favorite Legend of Zelda games of all time. I put so much time into it as a kid, and especially on Windfall Island in particular, which is what I'm drawing today. I delayed the game for so long just because I kept finding all these new side quests to do and just all these interesting little things that each individual person did, and I just never wanted to leave. There just was always new things to explore, and one of my favorite places to come back to, of course. So there were a few things I wanted to talk about today. The first thing I wanted to talk about before I talk a little bit more about this drawing was art block. Some of you may have noticed that I haven't uploaded anything in over a month. I've had a lot of changes going on in my life, and it resulted in art block to a degree, but it wasn't necessarily the entire reason why I haven't been uploading. So in regards to art block, I would tell you that there are two different kinds. There's the kind that everyone is familiar with, where you just absolutely have no idea what you want to draw. You just are stumped. What do I draw now? You finished a drawing and you're like, okay, yeah, that's done. Now what? I actually have a way to be proactive against that, that I do that helps me not end up in that situation. And that is, I notice when I draw, I tend to come up with 4 or 5 different ideas, maybe more, of things I could draw when I'm finished with this, like my current drawing. And I think it is a good idea to set aside some time for yourself to stop and write all those ideas down. Every idea you can think of, every idea you thought of, and every idea that you think of while you're writing your list. Everything that you can think of that you could possibly want to draw, even if you don't necessarily have a strong idea for it at that point in time. And here's why. When you find yourself in that situation where you finished a drawing and you say, okay, well, what do I want to draw now? Well, you can always, if nothing jumps out at you immediately, refer back to your list. And what I like to do is, if I'm really, really stumped and I don't have any ideas in mind at all, I will cut my paper that I have my list on. I'll cut it into strips with each idea on a strip of paper and fold it up and put it in a cup. And I will actually draw a paper out of the cup, and it's a random idea. I like this because one of two things will happen. If I'm genuinely just stumped with no idea what to do, I can just draw an idea, and there it is. There's my idea. I know what I want to draw now. Or, and this is really fun, you draw an idea out of the cup and you say, like me personally, you draw something out of the cup and you say, this isn't what I wanted to draw. Actually, maybe this is what I wanted to draw instead. And either way, I think you end up coming up with an idea. And you don't have to do this with absolutely every idea that you've come up with. You could even do it with 1 or 2 ideas or 3 ideas that you're stuck between and you're not sure which one you want to pick at this point. You could just pick between a couple of them. But I think that's a really fun way to try to stump art block. Even just having that visual representation in the list will help you remember ideas that you've had in the past, and maybe something will jump out at you strongly, or you'll even think of new ideas looking at your list again. The other type of art block, which actually kind of brings me back around to this drawing, is, for me personally, I will have an idea that I think is too big for my skill level. And what I mean by that is, I have an idea of something that I want to draw, but in my mind it looks really, really nice, and I am not convinced that at my current skill level, I could do it and make it look good. So I don't do anything because I have my heart set on this one drawing in particular, and I don't want to do anything else. I want to do this drawing, but I don't think I can do it. So I guess the best way I can describe it is I just sit around and feel sorry for myself until I convince myself to do it. And that is sort of what I did. When it comes to art and drawing, I feel like, and I know this about myself too, which is funny that I even fall into art block this way. You are never going to get better at something if you don't try to do it. I don't like doing backgrounds all the time. I actually have a love-hate relationship with them. For a while, I had actually been just doing characters and just drawing characters and putting a simple background behind them because I was so tired of drawing backgrounds and focusing on perspective and all that stuff. Even though I noticed that I had gotten better at it, but it just got tiresome. And then I got tired of just doing characters, and I said, well, I want to do something with a background. I want something that I can work on, that I can build from the ground up, that's not just a character. I want more going on in a drawing right now. And the idea that I had in mind was this Wind Waker drawing, and this is actually one that I have had written down for a while. I've wanted to do it for a while, and I'm just now getting around to do it. I've had it written down for months, and I actually didn't even draw this out of the little cup, even though the scrap of paper is in fact in the cup. I just knew I wanted to do this, but I was afraid to because I didn't feel confident about my ability to paint the water. And I have tried before, and I don't feel that I was very successful, but I can honestly say that my skill level has improved quite a bit since I've painted water last. So finally, I just decided I need to give myself the chance. And I looked at it like this. Here's what I know about my art, and here's what I want to know about my art. I know that I have a firm foundation in that I know how I typically like to do my line art. I know the subject matter. I've played Wind Waker entirely, probably too much for one human being. So it's not like I'd be doing extensive research about it. I just needed to find some good reference photos. And I have a process that I like to do. I like to do line art, and then my overpainting, my shading and highlights, and changing my line art color. So with that being said, I decided we're going to give it a try, because even if it's not what I would consider a successful attempt, at least I'm going to learn something from it, what didn't work. So I spent a lot of time when I wasn't drawing looking at tutorials for how to do the water, and I found a bunch of painterly styles that I sort of liked, but they didn't really go with the way that I draw. And then I found some more that I could incorporate into my style. So what I decided to do, one thing that I saw was pretty much a necessity, was to start off with a gradient. So the closer towards the horizon, I made the water lighter, and further away from the island out towards the deeper parts of the ocean would be a little bit darker, because the seafloor or ocean floor, however you want to call it, would be lower down, and there's a shadow under the boat. And then for the rippling effect in the water, I used a lowered opacity brush, just an India ink brush. But I did that because further away I wanted them to be lighter, because it's, more washed out towards the horizon line. And when I came forward, I took care to vary the line weight. Where those diamond shapes met, I tried to overlap a little bit and thicken them in. And again, you don't want to make them look too uniform, because then you don't get the same effect. and I think that I found something really nice to start with. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, actually. So I'm really glad that I talked myself into trying to do this. And I think that even had this not turned out as well as it did, and there are still things that I see with it that I think could be better, and that's okay. Like I said, I think you can learn something from every drawing that you do, and even if this had not turned out honestly as well as I think it did, I still would have learned something. And now I have a foundation for painting water that I can take with me into the next thing I decide to paint that has water in it and improve on it. And I really like that. So the next thing that I do is, after overpainting, I go in and I do my shadow color. And I didn't really fight with it, but I debated for a while what type of shadow color I wanted to use. I didn't want to use anything. I really wanted to stay away from pink and purple because I always use pink and purple. But the more I thought about it, I couldn't use any blues. I didn't feel that it was dark enough for blues. This is a very openly daytime piece, so I didn't want to make it the shadows seem like it was too dark. So I ended up going with, instead of pink, because I thought pink would be a little too sunsetty, I thought the purples would look nice, so I went with like a pinky purple, a little bit more purple than like a magenta. But I'm pretty happy with it, and I usually balance purple out with yellow, but I like it. And I put that over top of my my overpaint layers, of course. I have made the mistake in the past, and I'm sure this seems perfectly obvious to everyone else, where I have done my overpaint after my shadows, and that really sucked. So I have tried to take special care afterwards to do that first. And again, that probably seems very, very obvious to everyone else, but here I am. We're all learning in different ways, okay? Okay. So I overall, I think that I'm very happy with this for now, until I eventually dislike it, like most artists do most of their work. Some things that I took away from it that I would like to improve on. I didn't really do a whole lot with the rock face texture, and I sort of did that on purpose just because I feel that as far off as they are in the distance, I probably could have painted it a little bit more and it would have been fine. But it's one of those things where you pick and choose your battles, and it wasn't something I wanted to fight with. Rock texture, a lot like the water texture, is something that I'm not very confident on. So that is going to be something in the future that I'm going to find an excuse to do, and we're just gonna do it. We have to do it. It's part of the process. Could have worked a little bit more on the wood textures for the boat. I did try to fix them, but I overall, I don't think they were very obvious. I don't think that they stood out all that much, but they were okay. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to work on was my highlight textures. Could be totally wrong about this, but in my opinion, I think that you can say a lot about the texture of something that you are coloring with the way that you highlight it. And I tend to highlight everything about the same way. I try to add texture, but mostly with line art, I would say. So for my shadows, I place the shadow, unless I'm doing rim lighting, that's something different that I do, but I tend to place the shadows with an India ink brush and then smooth them out with a transparent watercolor. I don't really like the hard lines in my drawings, not always. And for the highlights, I tend to use an airbrush because I don't like turning the opacity down on a hard light layer, but I like to sort of build it up as I go. So I like using the airbrush for that, and then just taking away what I feel that I need to. But again, that's something that I'll be working on again in the future. And after adding highlights, I changed my line art color, and it's about finished. So I thank you guys for watching. I am changing my upload schedule to every other Saturday. So if you're watching this, you can expect to see the next one 2 weeks from Saturday. Thanks so much, guys. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time. Bye.